Kakadosh Boker Or Daf Yomi Masechet Batra Daf Kuf Lamed Chet Amud Aleph 138a1. So last time what we were speaking about was Rabbi Abba Marmamel came and he said that there's not going to be a contradiction, right, between the two different psakim. We were talking about that Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says is that the one that's receiving the present didn't acquire it. If he's from the beginning, he's already rejecting the present. If he starts screaming from the beginning, I don't want it, I don't want the present, I don't want to. So therefore, he never actually acquired it. Why? Because you can't force somebody to take something which is a zechut, kilu, it's like something good, when really be'emet it's a chov, it's something bad for them. However, though, when Shemuel comes and he says that the person does acquire the properties, we're talking about at the beginning, he was quiet when he accepted the document. He was quiet, and only at the end, after he already accepted the document, then he starts screaming that he doesn't want the present. So therefore, he does acquire the properties, right? Because once he accepted the document quietly, so therefore, for sure, he wanted to be zocheh. Later on, he starts screaming, fine, but that was afterwards. So afterwards, if he wants, he could either be mafkir, he could make it a hefker, or he could give it away as another present, but he already accepted it to himself. Okay, that's what we finished last time. Today, we're going to start with Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, second line. Okay, second line on the page. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Zikalo al yedei acher. If the person giving the present was mizakelo through a third party, meaning I'm going to give Richard a present, but I don't give it to him directly. I'm going to give it to Ronen. So I give to Ronen. He's going to be mizakeh to Richard. Yeah. So yeah, he's going to be happy. Yeah. Vishatak. Now what happens is, right, you accepted it, you kept quiet. And afterwards, you started screaming that you didn't want the present. It comes to the machlok between Rashbag and, right, Rabbanan. Yeah, 138a at the top. Okay, he says, the Tanya was learned in a Braita. You're going to write your properties to somebody else with a document, a present document. And you have slaves there. Slaves are included in it. So the one that's receiving says, meaning he was happy to receive the properties. He just didn't want the slaves. He doesn't want more headaches, so he didn't want the slaves. Imaya Rabban Sheni Kohen, if the Mekabela Matana was a Kohen, Harelu Ochlim Bitruma. They're able to eat Truma, these slaves. Because remember, a slave of a Kohen eats Truma because he's Shayach to the Kohen. So even the slaves of a Kohen could eat Truma. Right. Yeah? So you're not allowed to sell slave. Yeah. Yeah. So he says, Rashbag Omer, Rashbag comes and he says, Kevan Shamar Halla, but once he said, Ef Shiba, and I don't want the slaves, Farzachu Ben Yorshim. So therefore, the one that's giving, right, him or the Yorshim, they're the ones that are going to come and acquire it. Meaning, this guy never acquired it because he didn't want them. So he doesn't acquire the slaves. So therefore, they cannot start eating Truma. So we ask a question. V'tana kama, according to Chachamim, afilu omed v'tzoveach, even if the guy's coming and he's screaming that he doesn't want it, you're going to tell me that these slaves could still eat Truma? Ve'amar Rava v'item Rabbi Yochanan, Rava said, and some people say it was Rabbi Yochanan, v'tzoveach mi'ikaro, right? That if he's screaming from the beginning, for sure he's not going to be acquiring it, right? And if he's quiet and at the end he starts screaming, for sure, according to everybody, he does acquire it. So keep please. When is the machloka then? Shezika, what? Because he doesn't want it. So if he's screaming, I don't want it, I don't want it. Like, take it back or whatever. So he says, so keep, when is the machloket? Shezika lo alidei acher. That he was mizakelo to a third party. Beshatak. And he kept quiet. Ulvasof tzavach. And at the end he came and he started screaming. Tanakama holds me the shati kaninu, the fact that he kept quiet at the beginning, he already acquired it, and therefore it doesn't help now to scream, right? The haide katzava. So why is he screaming? Because he retracted, and now he doesn't want it, but it's already too late. He acquired it. Rashbag savar and Rashbag holds the end is what's the word? The end is showing, illustrating, showing, depicting. I don't know what you want to say exactly. What the intention was at the beginning. Meaning right now, the fact that he's screaming now, that's already showing you that from the beginning he wasn't happy with. So why didn't he scream until now? He says, as long as it didn't get to me, why am I going to start screaming? Meaning I'm going to tell you, okay, fine, I'm giving you this. Now, you know how many times people come and they tell you, yeah, I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you. So at the beginning, you just keep quiet because it's like, listen, if the guy didn't even give it to me yet, yeah, he could say a lot of things. But until, how do you call it? Push comes until they actually come and it actually comes into fruition. There's a lot. You know, many people, yeah, I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to, and then no, maybe, and then no, and then, you know how it works. So therefore, because of that, yeah, I'm looking at you. Yeah. So not at you. It's okay. So what happens is that in such a scenario, right? Such a scenario, right? What happens is that he didn't scream. He didn't need to scream. Once it already does come to his head, now he's going to start screaming. That's what he says. Okay? Until here we're clear. Very good. Tanu Rabbanan. We learned to the Braita. Shchiv Mera. Yeah? Shchiv Mera that comes and he says, Tenu 200 zuz leploni. Give 200 zuz to this person. Ushlosh me'ot leploni. 300 to this person. V'arba me'ot leploni. And 400 to this person. Yeah? En omrim, we do not say, kol hakodem b'shtar zocheh. We don't say that the first person in the shtar is going to be zocheh at the beginning, right? But rather they all get it at the exact same time. Right? Now you're going to tell me, okay, but what's enough kamina? Meaning, what do I care if it's in the same document? And I said, I'm giving it to Eitan one amount, and to, right, to Benjamin another amount, and to Richard another amount. So if I'm going to come and I'm going to give you, right, the same document, so now why in the world are you going to say, like, what do I care now if it's going to be once or not? So he says, Lefichach, Yatsa alav shtar chov, gove mikulam. So if a shtar chov comes, and all of a sudden this guy owed money. So now, what's he starting to be mechalek presents and trying to be some type of a guy in a red suit or I don't know what on Xmas or I don't know what? Hey, well, pay your debts, right? And then you're going to come and you're going to start handing out what do you call your gifts? You understand what's going on over here? So he says, he's going to accept from everybody. He comes, he collects from everybody. But if he said, Tenu 200 zuz liploni, Ve'acharav. He used the terminology afterwards. Give the 300 to Ploni, and afterwards the 400 to Ploni. Meaning he used the word every single time afterwards. Omrim kol hakodem shtar zocheh. So we're going to say each one was zocheh. Lefichach, and therefore yatsa alav shtar chov gove min ha'acharon. He only collects from the last guy, right? Which one? No, but there's three people. There's A, B, C. So the third one, it's always the last one. Because he said, give the. So he says, therefore, if it came out of shtar chov, he's going to get from the last person. If there's not enough from the last person, he goes to the second person. Not enough from the second person, then he goes to the first person. We learned to the Braita. Shchiv mera she'amar tenu 200 zuz leploni beni bechor kara'ui lo notlan v'notelet bechorato. What happens if a person is a shchiv mera and he says, give 200 zuz to Ploni, my son, the Bechor, right? Kara'ui lo, which is fitting for him. So notlan, he takes it. V'notel bechorato, he takes a chelek bechorah. However, if he says imamar bivchorato, which means in his bechor, right? So therefore, he doesn't take both, right? Nevertheless, yadola yona, he's got the upper hands. Ratza notlan, he could take the 200 zuz, right? If it's going to be, if the bechorah is less than that, or he could take his bechorah. Meaning the guy now has a choice. Should he take his firstborn or should he take the 200 zuz? Now, remember, we say 200 zuz, it sounds like $200. 200 zuz was the amount to live for a full year. So if you look in the minimum of whatever you call it on the right, I think it's even more. I think minimum. No, not minimum wage. If you say what is the minimum amount to live, like I don't know what in Florida, whatever, and it says or the minimum like a salary of again, we're not talking about a rocket scientist. You understand? We're talking about a minimum. A minimum. So what are we talking about? I don't know if it's like 40,000, 50, whatever it is. You understand? But it's I think it's 40 or 50,000. That's what I think it is. But that's the idea of what it was. It was basically what it costs you to live for one full year, right? So a person cannot live for $10,000 a year here in Florida. You understand? Not even in I don't know where. You understand? So he's the one that chooses now. He chooses whether it's going to be, he takes the 200 zuz, but it's more than the bechorah, or he takes the bechorah, but it's more than the 200 zuz. Yeah? Fine. He says, Ushchiv mera, she'amar, the shchiv mera that says, Tenu 200 zuz leplonit ishti, give 200 zuz to plonit, my wife, kara'uila, which is fitting for her, notlatan, right? You're going to take it, v'notelet et ktuvatan, you're going to take the ketubah. Imamar, if he said biktuvata, in her ketubah, right? Which means that she cannot take both. Because in the first case, when you're just saying right, give the 200 zuz leploni benim bechor kara'ui lo fitting to him, he could actually take both. That means, mamash, he won in both scenarios. But when he says bifchorato for his bechorah, so therefore he has to now just decide, he has to choose one or the other. He can't take both. Here by the shchimena, right, selamim shos, b'diuk oto dovar. Lama, right now, when he's going to come and he's going to say, give 200 zuz to Plonit, his wife, Kara Uila, she takes it and she can also take the ketubah. But if he says, as the ketubah, so now she has to decide, what does she want, the ketubah or the 200 zuz? Right? Kufla Medchet Amubet, 138b. So he says, Yadala Yuna, she has the upper hand. That's Tano Totan, if she wants, she takes the 200 zuz. That's if she wants, don't take ketubah, she's going to take the ketubah. Right? However, though, if a person comes and he's a shchimena and he says, give 200 zuz to the person that's bal chov, kara'uilo, notlam notelet chovo, he's going to take the chov. But if he says, right, bechovo, notlan bepinon chovo, he has to take it. That means here we do not say that he has the upper hand. Here, the fact that he says, take it as his debt, there's no such thing that he decides which one. He takes his debt. That's it. Right? That means he doesn't have the upper hand. He takes his debt, and that's it. That means if there was leftovers, it's leftovers. He does not take the leftovers. He only takes his debt. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. Mishum de amar kara'ui lo notlan v'notelet chovo. He says, I don't understand. In the first case of the shchimena, if he said kara'ui lo, what's fitting for him, he does have the upper hand. He could take both. He says, I don't understand. Now he's going to take it, right? And that's going to be the chova. V'dima kara'ui lo b'chova. Maybe when he said the words fitting for him, it meant fitting for him in the chov, meaning that he should never take more than his debt. I understand a person wanted to give to his child or he wanted to give to his wife. So, okay, so maybe also it could have been an element of a present that even more than what's fitting for them. So he basically gave them, whether it's 200 zuz extra or for them to choose, whatever you want. But here it's a balchov. Why in the world now, because he said kara'uilo, it's fitting for him, maybe he just said fitting for him as a chov, as a debt, and not anything else. Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman. Amar li Huna, says Huna. Hamani, who is this exactly? Rabbi Akiva. This is Rabbi Akiva. The diek lishne yitera. Rabbi Akiva was always medaktek on something extra that you say, meaning that a person just doesn't stop waste his words. A person chooses his words wisely. And therefore, if he said something extra, there's a reason for it. And you have to deduce from his language, what did he mean when he said those words? The Tzirambas we learned in the Mishnah, right? If a person comes and he's selling a house, right? Now, he didn't explain what he sold. He just sold the house. So it says over there, he doesn't sell lo tabor ve'lo tadut. He doesn't sell a pit or any other type of like, I don't know how you call it, a can whatever it was. Basically like different types of things in the ground.
Or a cistern.
Cistern, that's what it was. A cistern, he doesn't sell it. It's not included in the sale. Even though he wrote in the document, veruma, which means that the depths and the heights, which I would have said maybe that includes the depths, which is a pit. It says, no, it's not including the sale. Right? Not only that, he has to actually come and purchase, right? So he has to purchase from the purchaser, right, a path to get there. Okay, because basically, right, he left it for himself. These words are Rikiva. So for example, one more time, I'm selling my house. I did not write down that I'm selling you my pit. In my pit, I have water, right? Now you could use a pit as a swimming pool, as a water for drinking water, for washing, whatever you want. I didn't sell it to you. But I have to purchase a path to get there, because since I sold you my house, how do I get to the pit? So I have to purchase a path to get to the pit. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Chachamim say, he doesn't have to purchase a path, right? Why? Because if he left over the pit, he left over the path. But Rabbi Akiva admits to Chachamim that if he said chutz me'elu, except for these things, for sure he doesn't have to. Meaning, if he said explicitly, "I'm selling you the house except for the pit," even according to Rabbi Akiva, you don't have to purchase a path. Because obviously, since I said except for the pit, it's an understanding that I'm going to get to my pit. And how's that? I don't need to purchase a path to get to my pit. Right? Nah, why? It means to use it, obviously. That's the only purpose of having it. Yeah? Almas, you see from here, Kevan de lot tzarich, he says, since he doesn't have to actually explicitly explain anything, chutz me'elu, the ka'amar, and he said it, meaning according to Shittat Rabbi Akiva, since you didn't have to say that I'm not selling the pit, and you explicitly said, except for the pit and the cistern, that means that I'm coming including something for myself in the sale. What was that? The path, right? Since you don't need to say kara'uilo, and you actually did say kara'uilo, it means that it means that you're adding something. Meaning, according to Shitat Rabbi Akiva, he went like this. He says, when the Shechina is coming and saying, give to the Bechor this 200 zuz, what's fitting for him. When he added these two words, kara'uilo, what's fitting for him, the fact that he didn't need to say those two words, he was adding something. And what is the adding? The adding is now that the Bechor gets both. He gets the Bechorah, plus he gets the 200 zuz. Or the case of the wife, she gets the ketubah, plus she gets the 200 zuz, right? And meaning whenever he doesn't need to say something, but he does say something, it's adding. That's what Rabbi Akiva holds. Okay? So here we're clear. Very good. Tanu Rabbanan. We learned to the Braita. Okay, we're on the 2 dots, by the way. We just finished until the 2 dots. Shchimira. She'amar. You have a shchimira that he comes and he says, Mane yeshli, right, yeshli etzel ploni. I've got a mane by this Mr. So-and-so. Hayadim kotvim, the Edim are going to write it. Afal pi she'en makirin. Even though they don't know. Right, which means they're going to come and they're going to write down the words, even though they don't even know who the borrower is. Right, which means that they don't even know if Be'emet he's chayav or not. He basically just comes and he says, I have a maneh by this Ploni, which means Ploni owes me money. They don't even know, but they're going to write it down. Yeah? Lefichach, and therefore, keshehu goveh, right? When the yoresh of the tovea is going to be goveh, the chov, tzarich lavir raya. He has to bring a proof, right? Because basically, right, there's no proof that this shtar is really be'emet, it's there. Meaning, imagine right now, the guy just said, okay, this guy, he owes me. Okay, but do you know it's true? You don't know it's true. So they wrote it down, but they still have to now bring a proof, right? That really be'emet this exists, this loan exists, right? Because there's no proof, just the fact that he said it. But the guy's on his deathbed. He just, the guy, who says that it's true? So because of that, he has to bring a proof. These are the words that Rabbi mean. Chachamim omonim. Chachamim come and they say, en kotvin, they don't write it at all. Elaim ken makirin, unless they actually know that be'emet it's true. Lefichach, and therefore, keshu goveh, when they're going to come and they're going to collect it, and tzrich lavi raya. He doesn't have to bring a raya. Meaning, it all depends on what if you hold that you could write it down even without knowing the truth, so obviously then it's not really a valid document. But imagine right now you have somebody on his deathbed telling you, listen, this guy owes me money. You don't know anything about it. So now if you're going to write it down, right, even without knowing it, listen, we have to check if it's true. Just Stami said something, that's it. Oh, so you have to bring a proof. But if you're going to tell me that they don't write it down unless they know about it, so then the guy doesn't have to bring out a proof anymore. Because these edim, these witnesses would have never signed on this document, would have never written down this debt unless they knew what they were talking about. So, yes, and therefore, obviously, what would have happened? So therefore, they don't have to bring a proof. So Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman, right? Amar Lihuna, says Rav Huna, Tana Rabbi Miro, Rabbi Mi says, En kotvin, we don't write it. The Chachamim omrim, kotvin. The Chachamim come and they say, we do write it. Okay? So therefore, it comes out that there's another nusach, there's another version of the machloke between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim. According to Rabbi Meir, that means basically it's the exact opposite. You have to flip it. Okay, flip, meaning beforehand we just saw Rabbi Meir and the sages. We saw that according to Rabbi Meir, you write it, so therefore you have to bring a proof. And according to Chachamim, the sages, you don't write it, and therefore, you don't write it unless you know about it, and therefore you don't need to bring a proof. Now we're flipping it. Rabbi Meir says you don't write it unless you actually know about it, and Chachamim say that you do write it down. And even Rabbi Meir came and he said that we're going to suspect, right, that maybe the Bedin, they're going to make a mistake, that they didn't know that the Bedin write it down, even though they don't know that it's true. And therefore, if they just come and they just see a document, they're going to come and they're going to ask for it. So what's the halacha then? Like Rabbi Meir or Chachamim? So Amar of Din Hilchata, what's the halacha? We're not going to suspect for en choshin lebedin tuim. We're not going to suspect for a Bedin making such a mistake, and therefore the Bedin could write it down, even though they don't know about it. So says the Gemara, Umayshna midrava. What's the difference between Rava? Ta'amar Rava says, En choltzin elaim ken makirim. A betin will never do a chalitza unless they know the yavam and the yavama. Meaning, imagine right now, somebody comes into a bedin, right? They come and they say, we want to do chalitza to this woman. Now, they don't even know that they're connected. And they come, let's do this chalitza ceremony. Every single woman could get out of chalitza or get out of yibum with such a fake. You understand? They come, they do a sham, they do this thing, and go, they just did it. Obviously, you can't do that, right? Lefichach, and therefore, kotvin, right? They're allowed to write, get chalitza, get miyun, af and makirin. right? Even though they don't know. Yeah, they could write these down, right? Why? Because for sure the Beti knew about it, and therefore they said everything was done properly. So they could write the get chalitza and they could write a get miyun, right? They could do it. Okay, you have to skip the brackets. Mishum dechoshin lebedin toin, because we are going to suspect for right bedin toin. So says the Gemara, no, bedin batar beit dina lodaike. One bedin is not going to check after another bedin. Bedina batar edin daike, but bedin after edin witnesses yes, meaning like this. If there's one bedin that they come and they do, whether it's going to be, let's say, for example, a conversion, whether it's going to be a get, whether it's going to be. So now, if I come and I see something that they gave me, I'm not going to come and start looking into it. Obviously, we're talking about a valid and genuine bedin, right? We're not talking about a Mickey Mouse, yeah? But meaning, listen, this is a good bedin. I'm not going to come starting doing chakirot and drishot, start looking into what they did. So they come, they give me a paper. I'm going to come, I'm going to write it down. Why? Look into it. Fine. But if it's going to be witnesses, Betin will always look into it. Why? Because Betin know, listen, witnesses are just regular Joe Schmoes, right? They can make a lot of mistakes, and therefore they will look into the concept. Okay, so therefore that's going to be the difference between a Betin and a witnesses.